Well, this is tradition that falls back from the Kalimian island of Galimus, and from the bomb making is basically the tradition of when Jesus was resurrected, there was a big thunderous storm that spread across the whole land. Thunder, just a crazy storm the night of Jesus passing away, actually crucified. So 2 days after we resurrected, there was more thunder and lightning that kept ringing. And so basically when we make these bombs or our firecrackers for Easter time, it's basically to show the resurrection of Jesus Christ during this 2-3 day period.
I think the cowboys are trying to show who's the cowboy and who are the cattle, and they're trying to teach us how to get into our pens, and it's a little ridiculous to pull this on a certain event like this where fireworks are part of. Personally, I'm just new to the Greek Orthodox religion, and I was a little amazed to see that fireworks are part of the tradition, if you will, and I think it's actually a really good thing because they celebrate Easter a little more than they celebrate Christmas, and that's actually for a reason. I think it's a little highly overreactive, especially in light of the situation this has been going on for probably about 30, 40 decades. And it sounds to me like another Homeland Security exercise being perfectly timed to a point to train the public to be afraid.
Surrounding the entire block where the cathedral was situated were numerous police vehicles with their emergency lights flashing, which made the sacred celebration of Christ's resurrection feel more like a crime scene. Police officers moved through the crowd and stood on walls, heightening tensions and putting people on edge.
Well, it's anything but traditional and spiritual the way they're here. It's aggressiveness, and I don't feel protected actually. I feel like I've been terrorized by the police. I can't, I don't understand. This is supposed to be a spiritual celebration. Why are there so many here running around like Rambo? Or, they're not protecting me. What are they doing? It's getting worse and worse. I've been coming here for 27 years. This is the worst I've seen it get.
I started here in 1984, and this has happened ever since 1984.
Right.
And we've had problems in the past when you get this many people in a building and in a courtyard, and you start throwing fireworks or even handmade devices, you can see what kind of a dangerous situation that creates.
Right.
On their side, they say it's tradition. But from a public safety standpoint, it's a very dangerous situation, not only from the aspect of someone getting hurt or killed, but because it's a fire hazard as well. I don't think it's too much. We have the Tampa Regional Bomb Squad here, and the reason for that is because they actually do make explosive devices. We've confiscated them time and time again every single year.
Right.
They buy commercial fireworks, which in Florida are illegal. Anything except sparklers pretty much are illegal in Florida.
Right.
And so that's why we have the presence that we do.
Ariana, look at me. Where are you going? Ariana!
Oh,
Get over
oh, it's okay. Yeah, I guess it was. I was just getting shots.
Right.
We have perimeter units because once the bomb squad does the sweep, we have to secure the church, the courtyard, make sure no one does put more explosive devices in there.
Right.
Today they actually did find one on the roof. Just a day, it is attached to the cathedral, but it's the preschool.
Huh.
And it could have been activated by a remote control device, which the mechanical squad tells me is relatively sophisticated.
Wow, that's...
If they can do that, they can do it with a handmade device. Now, the ones on the roof tonight were commercially purchased, but it isn't.
The rhetoric used to describe the device made it seem sinister in nature, planted on top of a preschool, able to be detonated by remote control.
The Chief of Police does write a letter to the church every year asking them to discourage the youth from doing this. The church officials are cooperative.
Captain Templeton implies that the youth are largely responsible for many of these bombs, which are oftentimes handmade devices similar to a pipe bomb. But how likely is it that a youth would have the time, resources, and bomb-making ability to be able to craft a sophisticated remote detonation device, and even more so, be able to have the device actually detonate on command? The bomb threat shut down the block until about 11:20 p.m. while police secured the perimeter. Turns out the device was actually just a box of commercial fireworks, according to a Bay News 9 story, the implementation of which carries a misdemeanor charge in the state of Florida. So how grave of a threat did this device actually pose? Could the authorities have been exaggerating the threat in order to justify their largely intrusive presence? Just seconds after I finished speaking with Captain Templeton and turned off my camera, an explosion could be heard from the north in the direction of the docks.
Ah, right, I had my camera off. Oh, man. Well...
We'll start with sponge docks next. Yeah. We'll start on the sponge docks, and then we kind of chase them around all night long.
Yeah.
Explode one over here.
Yeah. God, I mean, that was loud, though. I mean, that was...
a handmade device, I'm sure.
It is true that one of these devices could seriously injure or kill if detonated in such a dense crowd of people. To the credit of the police, situations like this become a matter of damned if we do, damned if we don't, because police are oftentimes first to be criticized for not doing enough when a tragedy occurs. And for that, they really can't be blamed. However, in the context of this event, and of the Greek community in Tarpon Springs in general, the heavy-handed police presence appeared to be overkill. The fact is that while the explosives pose a serious risk to the public in this case has been doing this sort of thing for years, and doesn't really seem to have too much of a problem with the devices being used in conjunction with the celebration. In fact, many seem to have more of a problem with the police disrupting the event at the cathedral.
I don't really approve of their presence, but this year was by far the worst. I arrived here at 11 o'clock, a little bit later than usual, and was approached by an officer saying I couldn't enter the church. I kind of looked at him and said, why not? He kind of gave me an attitude and said that there's a bomb potentially in the church, this, that, and the other. And I just think, not that it's right for the Greek community to light off fireworks or bombs, but if that occurs, I think it should be dealt with after the fact.
Well, I think it's a real shame. I understand the necessity for police presence when there is such a large crowd and when there is threats of bombs and whatnot. But what I don't understand is the crushing of a culture that it seems like the majority of the people here that really created this town wanted the culture to be a certain way and have been for hundreds of years, and all dates back to even Kalimnos. So I'd like to see maybe the police presence for the crowd control, but maybe even have a controlled fireworks or bombings, which that option has never been put on the table by the Tarpon Springs Police Department.
The Tarpon Springs Police, they just come in and, they try to shut stuff down very unprofessionally, but, it's the duty of the nature. We can't really do too much about it, but abide by the guidelines without them having to be able to drop terrorist attacks and terrorist charges on us, which has nothing to do with us being terrorists. We are Christian religion of the Western Hemisphere, just like many other Christian beliefs.
At around 1 a.m., as families left the church to go have dinner, the police prepared for their patrols around the north side of the city. We went and sat on Dodecan East Boulevard and watched patrol cars drive around the block over and over. Undercover units zipped up and down the narrow brick streets of Greektown looking for any signs of suspicious activity. Yet the number of police didn't really seem to stop the number of explosions and fireworks we heard from behind the docks.
Oh, shit.
The attempts to quell the festivities after the service seemed like a cat-and-mouse game, and the mouse was surely winning. An officer approached me as I was filming him, trying to figure out the source of some of the fireworks that had been going off.
How you doing today?
Pretty good. Yeah, so how's all the stuff with the bombs and fireworks and whatnot? Yeah, take it easy.
It seemed as if some of the cops were tired of even trying to push the issue. At around 3:30 in the morning, we sat down the road from Zorba's on Athens Street and noticed a glimmer of a fuse burning about 2 blocks away. Seconds later, the device exploded, and the sound of several car alarms rang throughout the neighborhood.
Dude, that was so cool. We saw it. We just saw the bomb go off.
That was insane.
The cops down the street didn't seem too interested. I couldn't believe the audacity of the person who threw a bomb just blocks away from a group of officers, and how they were able to go about it so surreptitiously. Brashness seems to be a byproduct of desperation, and because of that, I don't believe that the police will ever be able to put a stop to the Easter bombs.